Okay, I want to thank everybody for joining. We'd basically like to just review the minutes. I don't have a copy of the minutes, unfortunately. Um,
I don't think I have either.
um,
This is from the last meeting.
yeah, I
They
don't,
they got sent out with the last meeting that didn't happen as well. So if you reviewed them for that meeting,
I can't remember whether I usually don't review the minutes until the day before. Or the very day of the meeting, so, we might need to postpone. Approving those minutes, for what meeting was that, Pam?
that was March 15th.
All right,
So we're postponing the minutes.
yeah, we're gonna have to postpone, approving the minutes. It's only,
Okay,
about 4 months now, and, we've done worse. We've,
okay.
so we'll do that next time. So the question I want to talk about is, first of all, do we want to continue to meet if we have a new chair? And Pam, presumably you're going to be staying on as clerk. Do we want to meet every month? Or do we want to go back to what I suggested a while ago, and that's to meet quarterly?
So
Unless
how about we let Ray decide that at the next meeting?
Okay, all right. Sure, we can do that. So you want to meet then in a month?
Well, we have an August 16th meeting on the books.
Okay, actually, that might be a good one to keep because, Bruce, talked about a site meeting. At the trailer and a site walk on Wednesday, August 7th. So, if we meet a week later, that sidewalk will still be fresh in our minds and we can talk
Okay.
about it. So actually that might be, and the other reason that we want to meet in August is because the 60% remedial design for the holding basin. The holding basin containment wall that's going to be due. That is due to EPA at the end of this month. So, and we're gonna need to take a good look at that, because that's pretty important. That's might be one of the most important things that happened this year.
That's due by the end of July.
It's due to EPA by the end of July, correct? Yeah, the Maximus, it was due this spring, but the Maximus asked for an extension. And it was granted, so unless EPA approves another extension. That should be ready for EPA.
So we should have something to write comments on.
Right, but we're probably not gonna get it until late July. So, that should be actually be in time for our August meeting, so. So the site walk and site meeting at the trailer, plus the 60% RD for the holding basin, those are the two big things coming up next month. So probably a good idea if we continue to meet monthly, at least for August anyway. The other thing is, we're gonna need to meet at 10:30, so we're gonna need to change those times. Because basically on a Friday, they want us out of here at noon. And 1 hour is it's kind of cutting it close for a meeting. So I would like to see, Ray can decide this too, but I'd like to see the meeting bumped up until 10:30 on Fridays.
So I will update the meeting time for August 16th to 10:30. And
And
we'll
then-
put reviewing the August 7th site visit and the reviewing the 60% holding basin design as agenda items for those.
Yeah, and that's a lot of stuff.
Okay.
'Cause that 60% RD that's gonna be a huge document. So yeah, so reviewing that and discussing the sidewalk and community site visit would be the two things coming up for August. So I want to talk about the only document that we really had this past month is the Knox Trail groundwater expansion project. I don't think anybody else is coming in.
Yeah, if they
Okay.
do,
Yeah,
it'll come up on the top.
okay, and I can,
And you can
let him in
invite
through here, right?
Exactly, yep, you'll see it. Pam, I was
And I'm
just
a
gonna,
co-host, I'll see him and I'll let him in if I
Okay.
if I see him
Okay,
show up.
all right, thank you, Pam, for your help on
and I
this.
have the recording going, so if you guys are done, you can just, at the very top, do you see this right here? You can hit the pause or the stop button. You just have to
Okay.
move the mouse.
Okay.
Pam,
and
you
what
might be
is-
able to see it too.
and what does that do now?
It's recording your meeting, so
Oh.
it goes on, for the record.
Okay, so how do I, at the end of the meeting?
I see,
how
so
do
I can pause the recording from that top menu is what you're saying?
Exactly,
Okay.
you can pause.
Okay,
and
I'll
then
do
you can
that
stop
when I need to,
officially.
when we're done.
Just so you
I'll
guys know,
stop.
in case I'm not back.
Okay,
But
great.
I'll try to come down around 12,
Oh.
sure.
Perfect.
You have a hard stop at 12 because you're going home, right?
Technically, yes,
That's what we're
I
gonna try
should
to,
be.
we're gonna try to finish by 12. So thank you.
Sounds good. Yes,
Yeah.
enjoy. Take
Okay,
care, guys.
all right, so, I mean, I think the most important, order of business is to elect a new chair, and if we can do it in absentia, that'd be fine, so. I moved that, Ray, be accepted as the new, chair, for at least for the next year.
I second the motion.
And Pam, do you want to continue as clerk?
I will
The next-
continue as clerk.
So Pam will continue as clerk. Do I hear a second on that?
I second that.
Okay, so so that's good. We get that out of the way.
Let's
Um,
vote, yeah. 1, 2,
Aye.
3, yes. No.
Just
Aye,
a,
aye.
just a show of hands. We have so many people that we might have to count the number of hands up. but-
Yeah, it's just the three of
That's
us. Oh, okay, good.
One of the things that we were gonna talk about is the Knox Trail. Well, we're gonna talk about reports, but the only report that we've gotten is the Knox Trail, groundwater expansion report. And I'd just like to talk about that for a minute. That is really cool what they did. And they drilled, below ground, as deep as 18 feet below ground. They installed the pipe, under the river as well as, and also under the Kinder gas line too. All this stuff was pretty amazing. They had some problems. They had a smaller rig do, the pipe from, Knox Trail Treatment Facility to EW2. That was a short distance. They brought in a larger rig, for the, Knox Trail Treatment Facility to BEW5, which is the bedrock well. And, they had some problems with that.
Thank you.
They actually got, they got the pipe, stuck, underground, about 400 feet, but 400 feet from the well, so it was like 800 feet altogether, is total distance. And, they got that, pipe stuck about halfway, and they couldn't move it. They tried for about a day, maybe 2 days to get that stuck pipe out of there, and they couldn't do it, so they actually decommissioned it. They, filled it with bentonite, and then they capped it. They were able to cap it. And then they drilled around it and installed another pipe. So basically, during, part of the operation, you've got two pipes there. One is the conduit for the water and the electrical, and the other is the stuck pipe that's been decommissioned. And hopefully we won't have to worry about that anymore. Couple of things, I noticed, they're saying that, in the report,
Excuse me.
that, they're intercepting, the groundwater plume that's headed toward the Acton Wells. And it's with that, plume is within the capture zone of the new wells, but, I think that's very true about BEW5, which is the bedrock well. That seems to be capturing pretty much the whole, 1,4-dioxane plume in bedrock. But it's, the most they can get out of that well is 2.3 gallons per minute. It's, just because it's in bedrock and you're not gonna get that much water out of a bedrock well, but, but it's also, intercepting, one of the, highest, bedrock contamination, areas of contamination, so even though you're only pumping 2.3 gallons out of that well, you're pumping it, at a higher concentration, so in other words, the 1,4-dioxane that's coming out of that well, is at a higher concentration than any other well we have. And so, what's happening is you're getting basically, you're getting, more mass pulled out of that bedrock well, BEW5, than the other wells, even though that well is only pumping 2.3 gallons per minute, you're getting a higher yield of 1,4-dioxane. And you're basically, I'm not gonna say encapsulating, but you're capturing the plume. The other well, in Overburden, the other two wells in Overburden, EW1 and EW2. They say that they're getting, the entire contaminant plume that's heading to active. I looked at the maps and I looked at the capture zone. And I looked at the concentrations of 1,4-dioxane in deep overburden. And it doesn't look like you're getting the whole thing. It looks like, some of that plume is outside of the capture zone. Not much is outside, but it could be, anywhere between, 0.46 micrograms per liter, which is the ROD cleanup level, and 1 microgram per liter. So even though they're getting most of it, they don't appear to be getting the whole thing out of deep overburden. So that's just one comment I had on that. Anybody else have any comments on that? The Knox Trail expansion, groundwater expansion report?
So my question, so your assessment is that they have enough bedrock wells, but probably not enough of the overburden wells.
Yeah, I think that the BEW5 is done a pretty good job, the way they designed it and situated it. Pretty good job of capturing, the 1,4-dioxane plume in groundwater. As far as that water in the deep overburden, that's actually being captured by, 2 wells, EW1, which was one of the original ones, and EW2. But I don't think, they're getting quite the whole thing. They're almost there.
So my question about this is, are they going to say, well, the purpose of us putting in the bedrock well in the first place is because that's really the major source of 1,4-dioxane. As we're pumping it out of the overburden, it's being replenished by the bedrock well. So until we get the bedrock under control, we won't have the overburden under control.
Yeah, I think, at that location, BEW5, that's where, according to what they say, is where the plume is coming back up, from bedrock to overburden. So it's got a vertical upward gradient. So that's why they wanted to put it there, is because that captures one of that bedrock source areas. So I think that's pretty accurate to say that.
And we didn't submit any comments to this report, right?
No, I wasn't able to, I was still kind of reviewing it, and I wasn't really able to get any comments, put together for that, but I
Okay.
mean, it's quite a job. They actually drilled from the treatment facility under the river and underground until they got to the new well that they put in. And there was an 8-inch borehole. They reamed it and they cleaned it to get it such that it could accept a pipe. And then they pulled from the well that they put in, they actually pulled the pipe back under the river and underground again. But unfortunately, they got stuck. It got stuck. about halfway, so, they had to
So-
decommission.
Yeah, you went over that already, so.
Okay, I'm sorry, yeah.
Right, so
Yeah,
do you,
thank
so my question is, the conduit that they ended up putting under the river, is
Yeah.
that big enough for more water pipes if they were to expand their program because they end up actually treating for PFAS?
It really, it can, they can only, it, get more water, they can only, pump more water, as much water as the well will allow, so, you take BEW 5, which is the bedrock well, if they're pumping that at 2.3 gallons
But
per
if they
minute.
were to add
See,
more,
that can
more
only-
wells
That, but
in the
what
future,
I'm saying is the formation can't give any more water. And if they try to put more water, you're just gonna, the water level's gonna go down and, it's, you wanna keep a certain amount of water, above the pump. And, if the water level gets too low, you're gonna ruin your pump, so.
but
it-
you're
it really-
talking about one pump, so there's a major pipe under the river. Right now, there's one well connected to that major pipe under the river, but if they were to expand their system and put in more wells,
Again,
the
they can
treatment
pump the
system,
wells, but.
could they
but
go
we-
to that treatment building?
I thought there were two
What's
pipes
gonna,
on
what's
the
gonna
river.
happen, is they're gonna exceed the capacity of the aquifer to produce water. So the water, the aquifer can only produce so much water. Without dropping the hydraulic head in the aquifer to a dangerous level. Because you're gonna expose your pipe, so it's not really the pumps, it's what the aquifer can provide. And right now, they've got BEW 5, which is bedrock well, but EW 2, which is the other well, the other horizontal well they put
There
in.
are two pipes under the river. right?
Yeah, one is from overburden. That's a double screen well, that's when the upper part of the screen is screened in a screen above the till, basically. And then the lower part of the CW 2 is screened in bedrock. And that till bedrock boundary, that's not screened, so.
But you were saying, for instance, that maybe there needed to be another placement of an overburden well in order to actually collect all of the 1,4-dioxane in the plume.
I don't think they're gonna put another one in, I think they're gonna wait and they're gonna pump that. And to see what happens. They've got the 3 wells pumping right now. EW 1, which is the original one they put in, is pumping at about 10 gallons a minute. The new well, EW 2, is pumping at, about 11.5 gallons a minute. And that's pumping both from overburden and bedrock. They're just not sure how much of that water is from bedrock and how much is overburden. But it's
So my
pumping at-
question was whether there is room in the conduit for them to add more pipes if they add more wells. And your response was they would never add more wells because they're pumping at the max the aquifer can provide.
Yeah, that's basically it. If they put another well in, they wouldn't be able to pump it at that high a pump rate, because it just, again, it's what the aquifer can provide. If
But we actually don't know if there's more space in the conduit for more.
well, it's a 6-inch conduit. And then inside that 6-inch conduit, you have a 1-inch conduit. And you also have 2-inch conduit, and those are the water supply conduits. And then you have a third conduit inside, which contains the electrical lines between the well and the treatment facility. So you basically got a 6-inch conduit, and then you've got 2 smaller conduits, 3 smaller conduits inside that
Inside.
6-inch.
Okay.
Um,
In theory, you could get something in practice, I imagine it's impossible. They pulled all these together in a bundle, didn't they?
yeah,
Not that-
yeah, and that's the other thing is, you know, how you gonna get, this new conduit, if they do put it in, how you gonna get it from the well to the treatment facility? You can't pull anymore, it has to pull if there's something, you know, it has to be drawn if there's something pulling it. And right now, there's nothing in the well to pull it, so.
Well, I'll have to say, wherever I've put conduit down, I've also put lines to pull other wires and things through, so I don't know whether they've prepared at that. I didn't see it
Yeah, I don't, I think
I
that
I took a look at the report, but I didn't actually see it in there, so.
yeah, I think what, if they were gonna do that, they would probably have to, go back
Okay,
underground and then re-drill, another, you know, another boring for this new well, if they decide
so
to
was
put
there
it.
anything else you thought was important in this report?
No, that was pretty much it, it's a capture zone, and the fact that, they're pulling a higher mass of 1,4-dioxane out of the bedrock well, even though the pumping rate is much lower, than the other wells, so it's, that tells me that it's, and they mentioned in the report that it's a BEW5 is actually, drawing water from a more contaminated, area.
So did you want to update anyone on the, what they said about the pre-characterization memo for the building E and the courtyard? Or what?
No, not really, they didn't really, we didn't get anything this month on that, I don't
I
think.
thought we got something back that said they incorporated our changes. And that
Um,
they weren't going to be
they-
separating the materials to keep some and dispose of others under building E. They were actually
Right.
going to be
right, they came out and
disposing of
said,
all of them.
yeah, that they were going to, dispose of everything offsite, so I think that was a major concession on their part. And that's the latest information I have on that. As far as the PFAS, I know that, you want to talk about that. Um, well, we knew that this is something that could happen all along, is that sometimes somewhere down the road, a new contaminant is found, that, you know, and, my understanding is that the Maximus is responsible for actually remediating that PFAS plume too, even though the plume is not extensive and concentrations are pretty low, but, that's my understanding, is that anything, they own anything that they find there. Yeah,
So I actually asked about whether at this update meeting that they're going to give on August 7th, they were going to discuss PFAS. And Bruce's response was, there's nothing new with that. We're not going to. And then Kara sent me something. She said, Pam, prior to the next annual groundwater sampling event, April 2025, EPA
Yeah.
and Mass DEP will review the sampling plan and will work with the Maximus to add PFAS sampling to additional sample locations across the site. Once we have additional PFAS data, we will evaluate whether or not PFAS should be added as a contamination of concern for the site. And if so, what, if any, changes to any on-site groundwater treatment need to be made? These changes, adding a COC and possible treatment changes if needed, would be documented in a remedy decision document, a memo to the file, an explanation of significant differences, or a ROD amendment. She said that
Oh.
she can actually talk about this process at the meeting, because one of the things that's interesting is that the treatment buildings that are there contain pre-filters that will actually filter the PFAS. And the only thing difference that it makes, if we don't need to add any more wells to do PFAS treatment, is that it makes the charcoal filter a little more expensive to dispose of, and that they have to actually test those charcoal filters anyway.
Yeah, they're gonna test them anyway. Yeah, that seems to cover pretty well. So it's, the most important thing is right now it's on EPA's radar.
Yeah.
And, it, like anything else associated with the Superfund site, it'll take a little bit of, time to iron out the wrinkles, but at least, they're thinking about it. So I think that's a good, and, yeah, it's normally the GACs, the granulated activated carbon, it would be a way that you would treat PFAS, but understand that the concentration of PFAS are really, really low there.
Well,
so long as,
except that one of the chemicals that's in the new 30 set from the from EPA, from the federal regulations,
yep,
was never tested there. Of all those things that they tested, they
Yeah.
missed one that did turn out to be regulated. So
okay, well, I
but
guess
they do
we'll,
have to test for that because they didn't test for it before.
right, and if you
And-
look at the distribution of the PFAS, it looks like it's highest under, just northwest of the holding basin, so.
Mhm.
But also too is concentrations are kind of all over the place. So you've got high concentrations at the edge of the plume, and it's not found everywhere. So it's I agree. I think they need to do some more sampling about that, just to get a better distribution of where that stuff is.
Well, it is nice to see that EPA is on top
Yeah.
of it, even though Bruce is pushing back a little bit from that. His view of
Right.
it was that they never used, that they never had perfluorated
Right, that was
compounds there
around,
at the
that
site
was
at
around
all.
9/11, right,
And I actually have to say that I'd kind of like to follow up with the fire department and find out if we used any when we responded to the fire there. That was the impetus for removing the buildings,
right.
because that could be
Yeah,
another
I
documented source.
read someplace that there wasn't any of that used when they fighting the fire. It may have been in,
I don't know whether, when they were, that was probably what, 10 years ago that they had that fire?
It was more than 10 years ago, but yeah, but we can ask our fire department as opposed to ask Bruce.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
that is the advantage of us being sort of we don't just ask the guy it would cost money to clean it up if it was,
right,
we
Right.
actually say, well, because even if we used it to respond to a fire there, it's their problem. It's the site's problem that is the source, as opposed to rainwater that's the source.
right. I like what I'm hearing from EPA on that. I haven't seen that email yet, but that's, I think that's gonna be a pretty good approach. And they're gonna be pumping there for a long time. I mean, they've got to get, they were talking about the outflow concentrations from the treatment plant being somewhat close to the 0.46 microgram per liter limit, ROD cleanup level, and they were pretty happy about that, but understand that it's gonna be the input concentration, not the after treatment concentration. That's gonna be
Right.
important. It's gonna be what's in the, what they're leaving behind in the aquifer at this point.
Yeah.
So they've got a lot of work to do, a lot of pumping to do, and I think that any PFAS, as small concentration as that is, and as localized as that is, that that'll be taken care of long before the 1,4-dioxane.
Yeah. Okay, so there was nothing else about PFAS to talk about? Let's see.
No, not, I saw I was going through some of my old documents and I saw an email from Mike Webster. This is, years ago before he left, and he talked a little bit about PFAS. And that, the kind of the state of the art for cleaning it up is GAC. but there's not a lot of information and data available. But yeah, just because it's a new contaminant, and they're still working on it, they're still devising ways to clean it up. Okay, anybody else have any comments, questions at all?
So the last thing that I had was the update from the task force. The task force is currently working on their criteria for making a recommendation. And trying to
Okay.
decide if they have all the information they need together to do that. They're busy writing and talking about the organization of the report. That's the big subject for the summer, while people are basically doing Zoom meetings and
Right.
stuff. So they'll be trying to make a decision in early September. That's
Okay.
their goal for that.
Well, their resistance as a committee is pretty much over in was it November?
Right, they have to write a report and they're done in November.
November, okay, yeah.
And I'm really hoping that we can actually recruit Carl Herman from that committee to this committee when he's done. He's actually a really good technical person, and he's like got a lot more stamina than most of us.
No, that's great. We actually have a new member, and I
Portia?
just got, yeah, you saw that email, yeah, so she's technically our sixth member right now, so we're still short one member. I've been meaning to talk to what's yeah, Tim Rose. I'm meaning to talk to Tim Rose about the possibility of joining our committee. And I still like to do that, actually, because I think he'd be a great resource.
Yeah, Tim would be good.
And he would fill out the the requirement for 7 folks on the committee, along with Portia, is that her name? Is she the
She's
what's her-
temporary Board of Health lead person, so the Board of Health gets to nominate somebody, and
right,
the NRC does as well, so.
yeah,
And I
Nick is
think
from-
that if Kurt joined, he would be replacing Nick, probably.
Board of Health, or is Kurt on the Natural Resources Commission?
Um,
Because it's the
Herman
Natural
is,
Resources.
Kurt is on the Natural Resources, and so is Nick Pappas, so. I
Okay,
think,
you could be replacing Nick, so
maybe it's the other way, maybe it's the other way around, maybe Portia's filling in for Kurt until he's done at the Board of Health, I'm not sure, so.
But
But
still,
I don't know whether we can convince him to join the committee. We definitely need some new people. It's just hard right now because the people that want to work on this are working on the task force.
right, exactly, yeah,
So.
and it's just gonna be, as the folks from the town said, it's just gonna be really hard to try to bring someone with no experience into this, into this mess here, and going forward with so much work has already been done. I mean, how
Yeah.
do you consolidate, 20 odd years of experience into,
Yeah.
something understandable for a new person? A couple of other things I want to mention.
Well, Kurt, there are several people that are on the task force who have worked extensively on this. To Paul Bohm, who used to be on this committee,
Yeah, I remember Paul, yep,
Gary Kleiman, who
Yep.
was on the reuse committee, Kurt, they're 3 or 4 members of that committee could easily step onto this committee with no lead time. So that would be great if we could get some of them as well.
that would be.
It is nice to get some of us on this committee who aren't about to retire from, I don't know, getting some younger people would be good, getting them up to speed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so, yeah. And it's not really I wouldn't say it's too demanding a job. I mean, you gotta come in with an idea of what's going on and review reports as they come out, but a couple of other things, and this is important. One thing that we need to focus on, I think, one of the things is to make sure that we get the reports, because for a while there, for like a year or longer, we weren't getting the reports and crew wasn't getting the reports. Kevin wasn't getting them either.
So,
and that
Um,
happened right after the switch from Chris Smith to Kara. So, there was,
So-
yeah,
so part of actually what the task force is doing is trying to come up with a program for who in the town gets the report and then would pass it out to the right people.
well, I'm not talking about the task force report, I'm talking about the report
No,
from the
the
Maximus.
reports from EPA need to go to the town, not to volunteer committee members directly and hope that it gets back to the town. And that's part of what the task force is trying to get together. Is so
Okay.
there isn't going to be this sympatric, some people get it, some people don't, based on what meeting they came to and signed up for information. So that the town would actually be a place that, that's actually part of what the task force is trying to come up with. If we have an opinion for who at the town, in the staff in the town that should be in charge of making sure making sure reports come from EPA and get distributed, or have any opinions about how that should happen, we should make that known to the task force, because that's going to be part of their report, is how do we make sure that the right people in the town get notified of what's happening.
Yeah, well, I
Site.
mean, it seems like it's kind of a long roundabout way to do things. I think we need to get the reports right from Kara. Because the other reason is too, is if we go the roundabout way and get the reports from the town, we're gonna be way past, her deadline for giving comments.
Except
As a
that if
committee.
you don't check your email for 2 weeks and Kara sends something out,
Well,
then the rest of us
That's
don't
why,
get it.
that's why
And
I'm
that's
not.
why I'm saying there needs to be somebody who actually gets paid to make sure everybody gets the report.
Well, that's why I'm not being chair anymore, is because I just
Yeah.
don't have the access like I used to,
Yeah.
but, yeah, we just, one of us, probably me or you, or maybe even Ray, can just get in touch with Kara and just say that there's been a change of leadership in the committee. And could you please, and she has a list, she has an email list of members of the committee and interested people. And there's the members of the committee, there's Tim Rose, and then there's Kevin, as well as Terry Ackerman. So those are the ones I'd like to see them get the reports, and then whatever the town, whatever we get from the town too, but I'm thinking that, if we have to wait for the town, we're gonna be way beyond our deadline for getting comments on these reports. We can't have that. Because if we don't get our comments in, our voice is not gonna be heard, and we're the ones who understand most about this,
Okay.
this whole situation, because we've been involved in it for so long.
Okay, so I'll have to say that I disagree strongly with your opinion that this stuff needs to be going to the committee first, and then I really
Well, I
think
think
that
it
what's
should go
missing here is that
simultaneously.
the town actually needs to be the one that's deciding which committees get this information and respond to it, and that,
Okay.
again, I think that it will work better that way, not worse. But
Well, I think, Ray's being the new chair of the committee can make that decision, but, I mean, I volunteer to keep in touch with Kara and make sure committee members and interested people get copies of those reports.
so you're saying that you can distribute stuff without going through the proper public?
Well, that's what we've done, and a
No,
lot
no,
of the stuff.
what we've done is that we've all been on EPA's list to get copies of these documents. So because the EPA has sent it to us, it's not we're not distributing it. That's the problem, is that we're not allowed to just distribute stuff to people we feel like it and not publicly post it somewhere.
Well, we're not distributing it, we're getting it distributed from EPA to us, and then Kara includes usually a little addendum to the email saying this data has not been reviewed by EPA, please don't let it get beyond our own little inner circles.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she doesn't want that stuff going to the town. She says, beyond our own groups, which is 2029 Main Street Committee, and crew,
Okay.
because that's also an email that goes to crew. So obviously, she doesn't want us, the town distributing it to whoever they feel like it. But, and that's how we've always done it. We've always gotten the reports. That's fine, if the town wants to get them have Kara send them to the town, but I'm just saying it's gonna be a slow process,
I
Pam.
have a question on another
I'm
topic.
gonna say it was never a slow process when John Minty, the building commissioner, was getting the copies of the air monitoring and the water monitoring reports. Those things, the day he got them, got sent to the Board of Health for review. There was never a delay on that.
Yeah, but.
No, I don't know that there would be any
I
delay
ask
on that if we have it set up that way. It's just right now we don't have it set up that way.
Well,
I have a
Fred
question
wanted to
on
ask a
another
question.
topic I'd like to ask before this topic uses up the 10 minutes left.
Okay.
All
Right.
Do you remember the name of the person to EPA who's interested in uranium, radiological expert?
From EPA or,
Yeah, or from Bruce's organization would do.
there was a guy named, Resnikoff, who's in New York. And he was a cruise consultant when it came to the radiologic information, but, I don't know how accurate that information
Okay,
was.
well, I can find out.
Is Resnikoff, Marvin Resnikoff.
Okay.
I'm not sure, again, I'm not sure.
Are you talking about the same subject?
Yeah, the radioactive.
I'm interested in, remember, we had a big discussion about this plan to do confirmatory sampling every 30 feet on a grid,
Yeah, right.
and everybody seemed unhappy that wasn't sampling everything. In fact, sampling just a very small fraction of what's there.
Right.
And there's another way this could be done. Although it's sampling a different area, you could use it with a gamma detector. You can look for surface for radiation in the first 6 inches of soil. The gamma rays will penetrate a few inches.
Right.
So you raise a gamma ray detector up 10 feet, and you can see gamma rays coming from 10 feet around in all directions, roughly. Raise it higher, you can see further. And in principle, you could just move the gamma ray detector around and see.
So you're talking anything that
radiation.
within 6 inches of the ground surface, right?
Yeah. So you're sampling something else. You're looking at the first 6 inches, but for the whole.
So
Well,
you're
that's all you know.
suggesting for the whole, for the final confirmatory sampling, not for the separate into which disposal pile it goes into. Sampling, right? You're suggesting for the final confirmatory sampling that in addition to doing the mass spec for the chemicals of concern, we also ask them to do a gamma sample from above.
Yeah, that would work. The downside is there's a big background from uranium in the soil, and I don't know how long you would have to sit in a particular location.
I think what you're talking about is a field screening measure, and, I'm not sure that would be acceptable to EPA.
Well, I wanted to talk to them. They must have considered it, and I wanted to hear what they had to say about the background problem.
Because I'm not sure that you need to have a protocol for using something like that. And I'm not sure there is for that instrument, because it's a field screening instrument. And I don't think there's any EPA procedure for that. You test for uranium or whatever contaminant in soil or groundwater, there's a protocol for that, a sample number usually, and, that's what you have to follow. But I don't think there is for this. I mean, I've never used a gamma detector, but I've used other field instruments. And, it's basically just quick identification. Is it there or is it not there?
So Fred, do you want to talk to Kara about this?
Yes, I'll ask Kara. Yeah.
Okay.
I got her email address and I can be fairly specific in that.
Okay.
Maybe she could direct me to somebody.
And I think the answer is actually going to be that there are such low levels that that's really not an easy way to screen for something that's basically not a
Yeah.
gamma emitter.
I think the answer is that the natural background is so high that
Yeah,
you have to look for a long time to see, to get something you know is above background, and the background's going to vary a little as you move around.
Okay.
But I'd like to. But I think there's another problem, that is they go over battlefields and they look for depleted uranium in the sands. And I've seen some of those results, and they do that by going out and getting samples and bringing back to the lab. But there must be a lot out there about this technology, and I thought somebody in EPA might know about it.
I don't know. Okay, so, what's next? We're gonna be meeting in August. And, somebody's gonna have to let Ray, I guess I'll let Ray know that he's been appointed as the new chair of the committee.
Yeah, I suspect that he's part of this meltdown at airports right now. That there's no, that they're having basically a problem that all the flights are delayed and stuff. So he may be, who knows whether where he is and why he didn't make it today. But that's
Right.
this big computer error that they're having at airports might be related to this.
I hadn't heard about that. That's today.
I mean, I would, I would volunteer to make sure that we're getting all the reports that we should get. And, the fact that we're getting the reports from the Maximus based on their deadlines. Because I've kind of been doing this for the last year.
So why don't you have that discussion with Kara?
I can do that. I can do that.
If you really want to do that, that's.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna, I mean, that's fine. I agree. She should send them to the town if that's what the town wants, but.
So do you want to come up with a list of documents we're expecting in the next 6 months for her?
Yeah.
From her?
I think. Yeah.
Talk with her about.
Well, basically from the Maximus through her. But yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. I'll do that. And, because, otherwise you've got reports like this Knox Trail expansion. That, gonna get slipped through the cracks, and I see other reports too. They mention other reports in this. About, O&M reports for that, monthly O&M reports for that treatment facility. We've never seen any of these reports. I'm not sure that we need to see the O&M, but. It certainly would be a good idea to find out what's in there anyway, in case we're missing
Would the
something.
monthly O&M reports be something that would show PFAS in the filters that were disposed of?
I don't know. I'm not sure what's in the O&M reports.
Okay.
But if they, I know that they had to shut down the Knox Trail treatment facility a couple of times due to precipitation build up inside, the remediation. Vials or whatever, remediation cylinders or whatever they use. When they put the new wells online, they got a lot of, so they didn't say what was in the, interesting, they didn't say what was in the precipitation. All they said that is they had to shut down the system for a couple of days in order to clean it out, clean this precipitation out, but they don't say what was in the precipitation. Now, that's a good question. I don't know. Is that something that we should know about,
Yeah.
you know? But anyway, so I mean, I volunteered to do that. I'll keep in touch with,
Are you
Karen.
coming to the August 7th meeting?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah.
So maybe that's where you can take her aside and talk about that.
Okay, I mean, that's fine.
well,
The only-
I mean,
the
we
only
definitely
thing-
want a heads up on when we're gonna see the holding basin plan.
Well, it's going to
Sure.
EPA at the end of June, so at the end of July, so.
Okay.
They're gonna wanna look at it for probably at least a week before it gets sent out to us. So I'm thinking probably about the same, and also too, as Bruce wants to talk about. The 60% holding basin at the community group meeting, so.
Yeah.
It's probably gonna get to us after that,
Okay,
which is another important reason why we meet in August.
okay.
I'm done, unless anybody has any other questions just about noon.
Okay, I saw that Nancy left the meeting,
Okay,
so. And I asked her whether there was something she wanted to ask. Email, I didn't get a response, so.
okay,
So I think we're done.
yeah,
Oh, I got one more thing. Thanks,
Okay.
Len, for being chair for 2 years. And for the
Yeah,
first couple of
I mean-
years when you did it too.
I mean, I would like to stay here, but unfortunately, my daughter comes first.
Yeah,
Like I say, and the other thing that happened is I'm out of the email loop, and
Right.
I just can't function and be a good,
what are
a
your
good-
hours like these days?
well, it's the same hours, it just, I don't have email access.
Okay,
It's a different job, same hours, but no email access.
okay,
Sometimes you can, you can squeeze a little bit of, hours into the job, but it's
Yeah.
very hard to do it now.
okay,
And I don't have email access at home, so I have to go to the library. So that's why I'm usually a week behind reviewing, and please keep that in mind, I'm usually a week behind. Getting information about reports or anything like that.
right.
Okay,
Okay. So see you at the August 7th meeting.
Yeah.
Fred, are you coming to that too, or are you gonna be out of town?
Yes, I'll be here in August, so.
Great.
so you got the
Fine.
verbal agenda that we put together, just.
I will
verbally.
get the new agenda and time posted. I'll talk to Ray.
And new time, yeah, 10:30, that's important,
Yeah.
that's good, because I think that'll just about do it, because. And the extra half hour will come in handy, so.
Okay,
And we don't have to be squeezed up against that, the rush hour to get out of here at noon.
okay.
All right, folks,
So we're adjourned?
we are adjourned, I'd like to hear a second on that.
I second it.
All right, we are adjourned.